Hey guys, welcome to On the Horizon. This week, I'm going to do a little bit different style of podcast. This is more of some thoughts that I had this last week on a recent elk hunt, as well as a sort of an update of what's going on here. So if you're looking for a normal podcast, this may not be right for you. We'll get back at those next week as we start getting some guests in. We get Trooper back from Europe, where he's been hunting chamois. And we start getting back on track with going through and reviewing some of the products from our sponsors for Mammoth and, getting to talk about the guys that we're helping sponsor with Mammoth as well. A couple of just updates I want to talk about before we get kicking on this week's musings about elk hunting. One, we heard a lot of people reach out to us asking about NRL Hunter. We are applying or sending all the paperwork over to those guys. We've reached out to see about getting the Banatic and the Banatic Carbon specifically involved in the factory class on NRL Hunter, so you can use those this year. We appreciate the support and sort of the reach outs on that. So that is kind of what we're working on here. There's some new releases, both on the 25 Creedmoor and a new chassis gun that we're working on in the Wooks stock, which is really cool setup. We're doing that in the 22 Creed, the 25 Creed, and a 308, and a heavier platform, but all the adjustability and really kind of like the Wook setup. So you've got, for you guys who followed Bergera for years, you've got Ben, who's now over running Wooks, and had a great relationship with him, had a chance to try out some of these products and really like the kind of cool hybrid combo between the wood and the aluminum. It gives you sort of a neat feel and kind of a cool look. So we're doing a limited run of those. Got a chance to play with those last week. We'll do some video on that particular rifle. You'll see some releases on those, and we'll take it out in the field and we'll see kind of what we think on that particular rifle. But we've got the wombat action in it, and a spiral fluted barrel looks really cool. So be sure and check that out. But for today, what I'm going to talk about is elk hunting a little bit. So I'm going to set my timer on our 22-minute countdown and see how we do on the hunt today. So one thing I want to talk about for me personally, and this is just, again, my thoughts, elk hunting really kicks off for me the beginning of hunting season. It sort of gets us out of the lull and kind of gets us back into thinking about, why we do what we do. I love the fact that we get out in the West and start thinking about customers, and it really helps me think a lot about products in terms of, what we're carrying, how we store it, what gear, you really need and don't need. Got a chance to play with the new SIG 10K range finding binoculars. I say new, they've been out for a while. Those things are awesome. I got a chance to put some of the actual dope for the rifles that we'll be using for Mammoth. Very, very impressed with how fast and how easy those things were to set up. So be sure and check those out. If you're looking for a good rangefinder combo, I don't know that I've used one that's been quite so fast. I think the color was better than the 2500s that I had in the past. But, we were using those kind of testing those, getting those set up for Mammoth, and then ultimately using the range-finding binoculars from Loophole for my hunt. Really like the carrying case on those, and the range-finding on the bow mode was about everything that I needed. Wide field of view, super clear. And so that's what we ended up carrying. Like I said, we were on an archery hunt, which for me was kind of getting back to my roots a little bit. For you guys that don't know, with this being such a rifle channel, we don't talk about it much, but archery was really where I got my start in the industry. So we got shot competitive archery here at Texas A&M for a few years, and ultimately ended up in sort of a weird hybrid role between marketing and sales and engineering at Bowtech Archery for a few years, and shot a lot of arrows. And so, this year, I've always wanted to do an elk hunt for archery. It's been since 2009 when we were chasing Roosevelts in Oregon, since I've gotten a chance to sort of get back to my roots. And so pulled out the bow, started shooting some 3D competitions, and got a chance to do quite a bit of shooting. Refletched some arrows, learned a lot about the new tech in arrows, which I love, and still went with the old G5 Montex, get those set up, shooting really well on the Bowtech 340, which, it's an older bow, but was the last project that I personally got a chance to work on while at Bowtech. So still, that bow shoots well and has kind of piece of my heart. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, so, two kind of areas. So one, and again, this is more me thinking than a straight podcast. So I'd love to see your comments and kind of answer and have some dialogue back and forth. But one, for me, hunting that particular property, so we're in Unit 4, New Mexico, been hunting it for almost 21 years, so not every year, but been up there quite a bit. And it seems like the rut has been moving more and more back each year, from whether it's temperature, whether it's moon phase, just something I've noticed. I'm curious if you guys who guide elk have noticed that. As a rifle hunter, it's amazing. The last few rifle hunts we've had have been right in the middle of the bugle, more towards peak rut than than anything we experienced this last week. On the archery side, it was 30s in the mornings and 60s in the afternoon. And we really we were coming off of a full moon, but we were getting into the dark moon the last couple of days we were there, really only hearing bulls bugle about the first 30 minutes of light and then right after dark, which makes it super difficult to chase elk. So we put in a lot of miles of opportunity to, I guess ruck practice for mammoth was probably the best part of it. But we did get into a bull the last day, and this is kind of where I want to take the part of the conversation later, which I've been really thinking about, critiquing about and sort of struggling about a little bit. We got an elk bugling down a logging road, which is great setup. I had a friend of mine from church was with me who is very, very accomplished archery hunter. He's even hunted bighorn sheep, and draws a lot of tags. We'll probably talk to him, in a different episode later, because in terms of putting in points and understanding, he uses hunting full and has been very successful drawing some big time hunts. But anyhow, get a chance on this elk. And with archery, elk are kind of hard to, in my opinion, to judge the range on. You're so close, and it happens a lot of times, especially in the way that we were hunting, it happens pretty quick. And they're such a big animal. Unless you're ready to range and you've got all your gear right, it's kind of hard to figure out yardage. And so he ended up overshooting this elk. I thought it was at 48 yards, actually at 32 yards. And what was crazy, though, is while we were finding the arrow, that bull came back in on us bugling. And so, my friend started to bugle for me. I use a single pin slider, so used to shooting distance, especially living in Oregon. I mean, we just had to shoot distance. Bull came in, quartered away, broadside. I say broadside, so, facing open shot, quartered away at 80 yards, took the shot, watched the arrow bury up into the fletchings on the last side rib, kind of hit what looked like would be the opposite side shoulder. Felt like a really good shot. After about 30 minutes, went up and checked and found absolutely zero blood, no arrow, which is super disappointing to me, which I've had happen on one elk hunt probably, almost probably 20 years ago, but similar situation, different arrows, different broadheads, different setup. So what we did is we ended up, using Onyx, which is amazing. If you don't use Onyx, I don't know how you do it, but ended up spreading out, 30 yards apart and walking back and forth down the mountain, and went, about 6.5 miles looking for this elk. Never found an arrow. Never found blood, and ended up losing footprints. And so ultimately lost the bull, which I hate, very, very much. And a lot of guys will say, hey, that was way too far of a shot. I shoot a lot. I felt pretty confident. Try to stay out of the shoulder. Probably should have tucked it in more in the shoulder. I was more concerned about that. And it got me really thinking about, sort of as hunters, you see a lot of people talk about, well, there's elitists in each group, right? So you've got your long range hunters, and you've got your muzzleloader guys, and you've got your, short to medium range hunters, rifle hunters, and then you've got your archery guys. And, we were debating a lot on the drive home. Just as a hunter, it's hard because our industry feels like it gets very segmented. So, okay, these archeries are elitist because we go in and we do it this particular way, or long range hunters, we're the best because we have all this gear and we shoot long range. And what was hard for me, and I'd love to know your opinion, is I felt sort of, I don't know, not necessarily lethality, but it's interesting to think about on the archery side versus rifle side. We could have shot 10 bulls with rifles, and with bigger calibers or bigger cartridges, shooting, in the shoulder, probably would have dropped that elk. Could we have hunted closer like we do in archery? Could we have, taken a rifle still and hunted at short yardages? Absolutely. And what I have seen on the firearm side, a lot of times is, boom, drop, and you don't have the animal run away. Where archery, you almost always have the animal run away. And so for me, it was kind of convicting. I started thinking about, I'm curious, we started looking at some data in terms of the amount of animals that were here when America was kind of founded, and, natives had access, or at least, you think about it in terms of, bow and arrow, spears, those kind of things. And just the amount of wounded animals, but also the amount of resilience of animals is pretty interesting to me. So kind of felt convicted on the archery side a little bit. Again, not saying that it was the best shot in the world. It was a solid shot. Should have taken it, should have been closer. All those things, totally not disagreeing with. But I felt like for me, rifle hunting felt in that moment a lot more ethical. And so I started looking back, and we'll drop some video into this podcast. You may have seen it before. I posted it last year on a rifle hunt. So I went on the same property, got a chance to rifle hunt last year with a 7 backcountry, and shot a nice 6x6 bull elk with that 7 backcountry. Actually, with it, still had to shoot it. 2 shots, made a shot kind of back about like where the arrow was, and then shot one more just kind of to dispatch the animal faster. And when cleaning that animal, found a broadhead. So it was pretty crazy, and you'll see in the video. Found a broadhead stuck in the basically the spine, and I still have it. Still in my truck. I'll show you pictures of that, where it got almost zero penetration on the animal, just a fixed, 2-blade. And then the craziest thing is on the opposite side of the elk, on the shoulder, it had a hole in the shoulder where you could see a perfect broadhead spot where it had been hit with an arrow on the other side. We're hunting in some property. It's private land property, but it is bordered all around the national forest. And so these elk coming in and out, getting a lot of various different types of hunting pressure. So, I say that to say, I'm curious what you guys think about archery hunting. What are your limits? We using some long range arrows. Again, the Montex arrow weight was around, I think it was around 7 grains, per inch or whatever, however the calculation is on that particular thing. But just want to know your thoughts, how you approach it. What do you think about the different seasons? And for me, still love archery, still something I want to do. I'll be doing some whitetail hunting in the archery side, but really love the fact that on a lot of the cartridges today in the boa construction, you just get really effective, and really appreciate the effectiveness, of the firearm side. So that's my thoughts. Again, just kind of ramblings on. I love elk hunting. Really interesting to see the different effects on different types of not just projectiles, but archery equipment as well. We'll be getting off this year. We'll be getting into, troopers have been in Europe hunting chamois, which is going to be really cool to hear that hunt. I've also got a Coues deer hunt and a Montana whitetail coming up this year. So we'll get some really interesting content on that. Guys, we appreciate it. So what is, in the next section of the podcast, we always talk about what's on our horizon. We started this. You've got some new product releases on horizon, some new different models we're doing, adding the 25 Creedmoor to a lot of things, and continuing to train for Mammoth. I cannot wait to start showing you some of the gear we got in from our sponsors. Specifically, we've got a new project we're working on with Silencer Central that I think you're really going to like. Cannot wait to get some testing through that particular product before it gets out to you guys. Please let us know, below in the comment section what you think about, elk hunting and gear and all those kind of things. And if there's any specific episodes you'd like us to do or things you'd like us to test, I love feedback on that. And with anything else, we'll send you some swag for sending out those comments. And if we used your content on our podcast. Now, other thing I've got in the working, has kind of fun I've been filming, is we're starting to do some ballistics gel testing. That has been a really interesting thing to try and figure out how to get ballistics gel made, because I want to show you the difference between the 80s in the 69s and the 65s in the 22 Creedmoor. Been shooting all those a lot. Like I said, we love the 22 Creedmoor, guys. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening to this week's Rambling with me on elk hunting and my thoughts on my last archery hunt this week. We appreciate it. Thanks for listening to On the Horizon. Be sure and like and subscribe. We'll catch you later.